I never imagined that the woman who called me mother every morning would be the same woman secretly counting the days until I was gone. For years, I opened my home to my daughter-in-law, Vanessa. I treated her like the daughter I never had. I defended her, supported her, and trusted her with the most precious thing in my life, my family. But one day, I discovered the truth. Vanessa was never fighting for my love. She was fighting for my money. She looked at my years of hard work, my late husband's legacy, and everything we built together, not as a family treasure, but as a prize waiting for her to claim. What she didn't know was that I had already seen the signs. I knew the questions she asked when she thought nobody was listening. I knew why she suddenly became affectionate after learning about my estate, and I knew exactly what I had to do. So I created a plan, a test, a trap that would reveal whether my daughter-in-law truly loved me, or whether she was only waiting for my fortune. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming amazing videos. Because what happened next changed my family forever, and it revealed a truth that I wish I had discovered years earlier. My name is Eleanor Whitmore, and for most of my life, I believed that family was the one thing money could never buy. I spent decades building a life that my husband Charles and I could be proud of. We didn't come from privilege. We didn't inherit a fortune. Everything we had came from years of sacrifice, difficult decisions, and countless nights when we wondered if our dreams would ever become reality. Charles and I met when we were young. He was ambitious, determined, and the kind of man who believed that a person's value was measured by their character, not their possessions. When we married, we had very little. Our first home was a small house with old furniture and a kitchen that needed repairs. But we were happy. We built our company slowly. We invested in properties, renovated old homes, and created neighborhoods where families could build their own memories. There were years when we worked from sunrise until late at night. There were moments when we had to choose between comfort and growth. But we never gave up. Over time, our small business became something much bigger than we ever imagined. Whitmore Estates became known across several states for creating beautiful, high-quality communities. By the time Charles passed away, we had built a company valued at nearly $50 million. But if anyone asked me what my greatest achievement was, I never mentioned the company. I always said it was raising my son, Nathan. Nathan was the greatest gift of my life. After losing Charles, Nathan became the person who helped me survive the pain. He was already an adult, but he still called me every morning to check on me. He would visit after work, sit in my kitchen, and listen as I told him stories about his father. He wasn't perfect, nobody is, but he had a good heart. Nathan was the kind of person who would stop his car to help a stranger change a tire. He remembered birthdays. He cared about people more than appearances. That was why, when he introduced me to Vanessa, I wanted so badly for her to become part of our family. I still remember the first time I met her. Nathan brought her to my home for dinner on a rainy evening in Boston. I had prepared one of Charles' favorite meals because Nathan told me Vanessa loved traditional family gatherings. When she walked through the door, she looked confident and elegant. She wore a beautiful coat, carried herself with sophistication, and immediately smiled when she saw me. "Mrs. Whitmore, it's such an honor to finally meet you," she said. But I told her something that night. "Please don't call me Mrs. Whitmore. If you're going to become part of this family, call me Eleanor." She smiled, and for a while I truly believed she meant it when she said she was grateful. Vanessa told me about her childhood, her dreams, and how much she admired what Charles and I had built. She asked about my company. She asked about my experiences. She asked about how I handled challenges as a woman in business. At the time, I thought those questions showed curiosity and respect. I didn't realize she was studying me, studying my lifestyle, studying my success, studying everything she could about the world I had spent decades creating. After Nathan and Vanessa married, I welcomed her completely. I wanted her to feel like she belonged. I invited her to family gatherings. I shared recipes that had been passed down through generations. I gave her jewelry that belonged to my mother. I wasn't trying to buy her affection. I simply wanted her to know that she was loved. But slowly, little things started changing. At first, they were small enough that I ignored them. A comment here, a question there, a moment that felt uncomfortable but disappeared quickly. One afternoon, Vanessa and I were sitting in my living room, looking through old photographs of Charles and me, when she noticed a picture of our company's headquarters. "That building must be worth a fortune," she said. I smiled. "It represents a lot of hard work." She nodded. "I can only imagine what it must feel like knowing you created something so valuable." I didn't think much about it. Then she asked, "Have you ever thought about what will happen to everything when you're no longer around?" I remember the silence after that question. Not because the question itself was unusual. Everyone eventually thinks about the future, but it was the way she asked. There was no sadness, no concern, no mention of memories, only curiosity. I looked at her carefully. "I have a plan," I replied. She smiled. "Oh, of course, you're always prepared." At that moment, I convinced myself I was imagining things. I told myself Vanessa was simply being practical. I told myself I was being too sensitive after losing Charles. But then the questions became more frequent. She wanted to know about my properties. She wanted to know how my company was structured. She wanted to know if Nathan had access to my accounts. And every time I answered, I noticed the same thing. She wasn't interested in the stories behind those things. She was interested in their value. My best friend Grace was the first person who noticed. Grace had known me for more than 40 years. She had watched me build my life from nothing. She knew my personality better than almost anyone. One afternoon, we were drinking tea in my garden when she looked at me and said, "Eleanor, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Have you noticed how often Vanessa brings up your money?" I paused. I didn't want to admit it, because admitting it meant accepting that something might be wrong. "She's young," I said. "Maybe she's just curious." Grace looked at me. Curiosity asks questions about your memories. Greed asks questions about your possessions. Those words stayed with me, because deep down I knew Grace was right. But I wasn't ready to accept it, not yet. This was my daughter-in-law, the woman married to my only child, the woman I had welcomed into my home, the woman I had defended whenever anyone criticized her. I wanted to believe love was stronger than ambition. I wanted to believe family meant something. But then came the day when Vanessa made a request that changed everything. A request that made me realize she wasn't simply interested in my wealth. She was already making plans for it. And she was doing it without my knowledge. For months, I tried to convince myself that I was simply overthinking things. After losing Charles, I had become more protective of the people around me. I knew grief could make a person see danger where there was only uncertainty. So whenever Vanessa asked about my finances, I found reasons to excuse it. Maybe she was planning for the future. Maybe she wanted to understand the family business. Maybe she was simply trying to be responsible. I wanted to believe that because the alternative was painful. The alternative meant accepting that someone I had welcomed into my family might not see me as a person. She might see me as an opportunity, but sometimes the truth doesn't arrive through one dramatic moment. Sometimes it arrives through small pieces. A sentence you overhear, a look someone gives when they think you aren't watching, a question that reveals more than the person asking it intended. That was exactly what happened with Vanessa. It started one Sunday afternoon when Nathan and Vanessa came over for lunch. I had prepared a meal that Nathan loved since childhood. Roast chicken, vegetables, and the dessert Charles always requested on special occasions. I remember feeling happy that day. For a few hours, everything felt normal. Nathan was laughing. I was telling old family stories. Vanessa was smiling. But then the conversation changed. Nathan mentioned that he had been thinking about expanding his own business. I immediately became excited. "That's wonderful," I told him. "Your father would have been proud." Nathan smiled. "I've learned a lot from you and Dad." Before I could respond, Vanessa looked at him and said, "That's exactly why it would make sense for us to have more involvement in the family assets." The room became quiet. I looked at her. "What do you mean?" She quickly smiled. "Oh, I just mean Nathan should be more involved in the company. He's your only child. Eventually, everything will belong to him anyway. Her words sounded reasonable, almost harmless, but something about them bothered me, because she didn't say, Nathan should learn more from you. She didn't say, Nathan should help you. She said everything would belong to him anyway, as if my life's work was already something she was waiting to receive. I calmly replied, My son will always be part of my plans, Vanessa, but there is a difference between preparing someone for responsibility and handing them something they haven't earned. I noticed her expression change, only for a second, but I saw it, a small flash of disappointment. Then she smiled again. I completely understand, but I knew she didn't. A few weeks later, I received another warning. I was visiting Grace at her home when she mentioned something that made my heart sink. Eleanor, I saw Vanessa yesterday. Oh? Yes. She was meeting with someone downtown. I laughed. Grace, Vanessa meets people all the time. I know, but I recognized the person she was with. Who? An estate attorney. I stopped. Are you sure? Grace nodded. She didn't see me. They were sitting outside a cafe discussing documents. I felt a strange heaviness in my chest. An estate attorney. Why would Vanessa be meeting with an estate attorney? And why wouldn't she tell me? I didn't immediately accuse her. I didn't want to make a decision based only on suspicion. So I waited. I watched. And what I saw hurt more than I expected. Vanessa became increasingly interested in my daily life. But not my happiness, my assets. She asked about the value of my home. She asked about the company's yearly profits. She asked how much money Nathan would inherit. One evening, while we were attending a charity event, she introduced me to someone as, This is Eleanor. She's the reason our family will always be financially secure. I smiled politely, but inside I felt something break, because she didn't introduce me as Nathan's mother. She didn't introduce me as a woman who had spent decades building a life. She introduced me by my wealth. That night, when I returned home, I sat in the same room where Charles and I used to plan our future. I looked around at the memories, the photographs, the furniture we chose together, the awards we earned, and for the first time I asked myself a painful question. Did Vanessa love me, or did she love what she thought I could give her? The next morning, something happened that changed the way I saw everything. I was walking past the guest room when I heard voices coming from inside. Nathan and Vanessa were talking. I wasn't trying to listen. I promise I wasn't. But then I heard my name, and I stopped. Vanessa, you need to stop putting pressure on my mother, Nathan said. My heart tightened. Pressure? What pressure was he talking about? Vanessa responded quietly. I'm not pressuring her. I'm helping her make smart decisions. She's 72 years old. She knows what she's doing. That's exactly why we need to be involved before it's too late. There was silence. Then Nathan said, Why does this matter so much to you? And Vanessa answered with words I will never forget. Because I don't want our future depending on whether your mother decides to be generous. I stood there frozen. Those words told me everything. She wasn't talking about love. She wasn't talking about family. She was talking about access. She wanted certainty that my money would become her money. And suddenly all the moments I had ignored started making sense. The questions, the compliments, the sudden affection, the interest in my business. It wasn't random. It was a pattern. I quietly walked away before they knew I had heard them. That night I barely slept. I cried. Not because of the money. The money was never the important part. I cried because I had opened my heart to someone who was only looking at my bank account. I had treated Vanessa like a daughter, and she had treated me like an inheritance waiting to happen. But something inside me changed that night. For years I had been a woman who built businesses, a woman who negotiated deals, a woman who knew how to protect what mattered. I realized I had allowed my love for my family to make me ignore my instincts, and I decided something. I was not going to fight Vanessa with anger. I was not going to create a family war. I was going to find out the truth. And to do that, I needed to create a situation where Vanessa's own choices would reveal who she truly was. That was when I began planning the trap. The hardest part about discovering someone's true intentions is not the betrayal itself. It is realizing how long you ignored the signs. I spent days thinking about every conversation I had ever shared with Vanessa, every hug, every compliment, every moment I believed showed affection. I wondered if any of it had been real, but then I reminded myself of something Charles always told me. Eleanor, when you want to know who someone truly is, don't listen only to their words. Watch what they do when they think nobody is paying attention. Those words had guided me through business, through difficult negotiations, through life. And now, they were guiding me through the most painful situation I had ever faced. I decided I would not confront Vanessa immediately. A confrontation based on emotion would only give her a chance to deny everything. I needed answers. I needed proof. Most importantly, I needed to understand how far she was willing to go. So I did something I had done many times during my years in business. I observed, I listened, I waited. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Vanessa continued acting like the perfect daughter-in-law. She called me more often. She asked if I needed anything. She sent gifts. She told me how much she appreciated everything I had done for her and Nathan. But after hearing what I heard that night, those gestures felt different. They no longer felt like love. They felt like preparation. One afternoon, Vanessa visited me at my home. She walked into the living room carrying a beautiful gift basket. "Eleanor, I saw this and thought of you." I smiled. "That's very thoughtful." She sat beside me. "You know, I've been thinking a lot lately." "About what?" "About family." I looked at her carefully. "Family is important." "Yes," she said. "And I think families should make sure everything is organized before problems happen." I already knew where the conversation was going. "What kind of problems?" she sighed. "You know, emergencies, health issues, unexpected situations." I placed my cup down. "I have already handled my estate planning." "I know," she replied quickly. "But sometimes people need help making those decisions." I smiled. "Help from who?" She paused. Then she said, "From the people who will be affected." There it was again, the same attitude, the same assumption. She wasn't asking about my wishes. She was talking about what she believed she was entitled to. I changed the subject. But inside, I was taking notes. Every word, every reaction, every expression. Later that week, I met with my attorney, Daniel Parker. Daniel had worked with my family for more than 20 years. He helped Charles and me build the legal foundation for our company. He was one of the few people I completely trusted. When I entered his office, he immediately noticed something was wrong. "Eleanor, you look troubled." I sat down. "I need your advice." He listened as I explained everything. The questions, the conversations, the sudden interest in my estate. When I finished, he remained quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Eleanor, are you considering changing your plans?" "I'm considering protecting them." Daniel nodded. "That is different." "Yes," I said. "I don't want revenge. I want the truth." He leaned forward. "What exactly are you trying to discover?" I looked out the window. "I want to know whether Vanessa would still treat me the same if she believed there was nothing for her to gain." Daniel understood immediately. "You want to test her." "Yes. And you understand this could change your relationship with your family permanently?" I nodded. "I already feel like something has changed." After that meeting, I began making careful adjustments. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious. I didn't remove Nathan from my plans. I didn't make accusations. I simply created a situation where people's choices would speak louder than their words. The first step was telling Nathan something that was completely true. I told him I was reviewing my estate plans. His reaction surprised me. He looked concerned. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm fine." "Then why are you changing things?" "I'm not changing things because I'm upset. I'm simply making sure everything reflects my current wishes." Nathan looked uncomfortable. "I just hope this doesn't cause problems." That sentence stayed with me, because I realized Nathan already knew there were problems. He wasn't unaware. He was caught in the middle. I asked him, "Nathan, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Do you believe your wife loves me?" He looked away, and that silence told me more than any answer could have. A mother knows her child. Even when they don't speak, you can feel when they are hiding something. "Nathan," I said softly, "is there something I should know?" He took a deep breath. "I don't want to hurt you." My heart sank. "What does that mean?" He rubbed his forehead. "Vanessa has been worried about our future." "Your future?" "Yes. And what does that have to do with me?" He didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, "She thinks we should have more control over certain family matters." I felt a wave of sadness. Not anger, sadness. Because I wasn't hearing this from Vanessa. I was hearing it from my son, the child I raised, the person I protected my entire life. I looked at him and asked, "Does she believe she deserves something from me?" Nathan didn't respond, but his expression changed, and that was enough. That night I sat alone in my house, the same house where Charles and I celebrated birthdays, the same house where Nathan took his first steps, the same house where I welcomed Vanessa with an open heart. And I realized something painful. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you have to be the most careful with, because strangers cannot break your heart. Only people you trust can do that. But I wasn't ready to give up on my family, not yet. I still believed Nathan could see the truth. I still believed Vanessa might eventually realize what she was doing. But then came the moment that pushed everything further. The moment when Vanessa made a decision without asking me. A decision that showed she was no longer simply hoping for my wealth. She was already planning around it. And when I discovered what she had done, I knew the time for waiting was over. The trap had to begin. There are moments in life when you can feel everything changing. A moment when you realize that the relationship you thought you had is no longer the relationship that exists. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday morning. I was sitting in my office reviewing documents when my assistant informed me that someone had requested information about my company. At first, I assumed it was a normal business matter. My company received requests all the time, but when I saw the name attached to the inquiry, my hands became still. It was Vanessa, my daughter-in-law. She had contacted one of our financial advisors and asked detailed questions about the structure of my company. Questions that only family members and authorized individuals should have been asking. She wanted to know about ownership. She wanted to know about future transfers. She wanted to know how quickly assets could be moved. I read the documents twice because I wanted to make sure I was understanding correctly. I wanted there to be another explanation, but there wasn't. Vanessa had been making plans about my wealth without my permission, without my knowledge, and without even having a conversation with me. That was the moment I stopped making excuses for her. That afternoon, I called Nathan. "Can you and Vanessa come over tonight?" There was silence on the phone. "Mom, is everything okay? We need to talk." He immediately knew something was wrong. "Is this about Vanessa?" I closed my eyes. Yes. A few hours later, they arrived at my home. The atmosphere felt different. Nathan looked nervous. Vanessa looked confident, almost too confident. We sat in the living room where we had celebrated holidays together, where we had laughed, where I once believed we were a family. I looked at Vanessa. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you contact my financial advisor?" Her expression changed slightly, only for a second, but I noticed. "I was just trying to understand the family finances." "The family finances?" "Yes. I thought it would be responsible to know how everything was organized." I stared at her. "Responsible for who?" She looked uncomfortable. "For Nathan, for our future." I took a deep breath. "Vanessa, my future is also important." She frowned. "I never said it wasn't, but your actions suggested otherwise." The room became quiet. Nathan looked between us. "Mom, maybe there's a misunderstanding." I turned toward him. "A misunderstanding?" I handed him the documents. "Your wife contacted people who handle my private affairs without telling me." Nathan looked through the papers. His face changed. "Vanessa, is this true?" She crossed her arms. "I was trying to help." "No," I said calmly. "You were trying to gain access." That was the first time I saw her lose control. Her polite expression disappeared. Eleanor, I think you are making this into something it isn't. Am I? Yes. She leaned forward. You have spent your whole life building this empire, but eventually someone will have to take responsibility for it. I agree. Then why are you acting like Nathan and I are strangers? I looked at her. Because responsibility is earned. It is not demanded. Her face tightened. I am your son's wife, and I welcomed you as my daughter. Exactly, she replied. Which means I should be treated like family. I nodded slowly. Family is built on love and trust, Vanessa, not expectation. She stood up. I can't believe you think I'm after your money. I looked at her. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Her voice became louder. You think because I care about our future, I'm greedy. I remained calm. No, I think your actions are telling me something your words are not. Nathan stood up. Both of you need to calm down. But Vanessa turned toward him. No, Nathan. Your mother has already decided who I am. I watched my son struggle. He hated conflict. He wanted everyone to be happy. But some situations force people to choose. And that night I saw something that hurt me deeply. Nathan defended her. Mom, maybe you should give Vanessa a chance to explain. I looked at him. I gave her years. He became quiet. I continued. I invited her into my life. I treated her like my own child. I trusted her. Vanessa shook her head. And now you're punishing me because I asked questions? No, I replied. I'm protecting myself because you crossed boundaries. That sentence changed the entire room. Vanessa grabbed her purse. I never expected this from you. I looked at her sadly. Neither did I. She walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned around. I hope you realize what you're doing before it's too late. I watched her leave, and for the first time, I wondered if she truly believed she was the victim. Some people become so focused on what they want that they convince themselves they deserve it. After she left, Nathan remained standing in the living room. He looked hurt. I don't know what to think. I walked toward him. Nathan, I don't want you to choose between your wife and me. Then what do you want? The truth. He looked down. I love you, Mom. I know. And I love Vanessa. I know. But I feel like I'm losing everyone. My heart broke hearing those words, because I never wanted my son to feel trapped. I wanted him to have a happy marriage. I wanted him to have a loving family. But I also knew something important. Love does not mean allowing someone to take advantage of you. That night, after Nathan left, I walked through my empty house. I looked at the photographs on the walls. Charles smiling, Nathan as a child, family vacations, celebrations, memories. And I made my decision. I was done trying to convince Vanessa to love me. Now, I would simply let her show me who she was. The next step was already planned. I would create the opportunity. I would change the information she thought she knew, and I would watch carefully, because the trap I was setting was not designed to hurt her. It was designed to reveal the truth. And when Vanessa believed she had finally found the path to my fortune, she would discover that everything she had been chasing was never what she thought it was. After the confrontation with Vanessa, I realized something important. The truth does not need to be forced. It simply needs the right moment to reveal itself. For years, I had protected my family from pain. I had covered mistakes. I had forgiven things before apologies were even offered. But this time was different, because this was no longer about a misunderstanding. It was about trust. And once trust is broken, rebuilding it requires honesty from both sides. I knew Vanessa believed she understood my situation. She believed she knew what I owned. She believed she knew what Nathan would receive. Most importantly, she believed she knew how much power my wealth gave her over the future. But there was one thing she didn't understand. Money can reveal people. It can show who stays when there is nothing to gain. It can show who disappears when the benefits are gone, and I was about to find out exactly who Vanessa was. I met with Daniel Parker, my attorney, again. This time I wasn't there because I was afraid. I was there because I was ready. Daniel, I said, I want to make some changes. He looked at me carefully. Are you sure? Yes. Eleanor, before we do anything, I want you to understand something. Decisions made out of anger can create regret. I smiled. Daniel, I'm not angry. He raised an eyebrow. No? No. I'm disappointed. There is a difference. He nodded. What do you want to change? I opened the folder in front of me. I want to create a new estate plan. Daniel reviewed the documents. You're not removing Nathan. No. You're not cutting him out. Never. He looked confused. Then what exactly are you doing? I looked at him. I'm making sure my money goes to people who respect the values behind it. That was the foundation of my decision. I had spent my entire life believing wealth should create opportunities. It should help people. It should support causes that mattered. It should continue the legacy Charles and I built. But Vanessa saw it differently. To her, wealth was security, status, a guarantee. She didn't see the years of sacrifice behind it. She didn't see the people we helped. She only saw the number. So Daniel and I created a plan, a legal and careful plan. I changed nothing that would harm Nathan. I simply created a situation where Vanessa's reaction would tell me everything. The first step was allowing a rumor to spread. Not a lie. Just a misunderstanding. I mentioned casually to a few trusted people that I was reconsidering my estate because I wanted to focus more of my resources on charitable foundations and community projects. I wanted to see what would happen if Vanessa believed the fortune she expected might not be waiting for her. The reaction came faster than I expected. 3 days later, Vanessa called me. Her voice sounded unusually concerned. Eleanor, I heard something. I already knew what she meant. Oh? Someone told me you're changing your plans. I review my plans regularly. But are you making major changes? I paused. Why does that matter? She became quiet. Then she said, because Nathan is your son. There it was. Again. The focus was not on me, not on what I wanted, not on my happiness, only on Nathan's inheritance. I calmly replied, Nathan will always be my son, but you need to think about his future. I looked out the window. His future should be built on his own choices, Vanessa. She didn't respond immediately. Then she said, I just don't understand why you would risk everything your family built. I almost laughed, because that was the exact point. She thought the money belonged to the family, but she had forgotten something. I was still alive. It was still my decision. After the call ended, I sat quietly for a long time. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't happy. Watching someone prove your fears right is not satisfying. It is painful, especially when that person is connected to your child. A few days later, Vanessa and Nathan visited again. This time, her attitude was different. She was sweeter, more careful. She complimented everything in my home. She asked about my health. She offered to help with things she had never cared about before. But I noticed something. Every conversation eventually returned to the same topic: the future, the company, the estate, the money. That evening, Vanessa said something that confirmed my decision. Eleanor, I hope you understand that Nathan and I have plans for our future. I smiled. I hope you achieve everything you work for. She looked surprised. What does that mean? It means I believe people should build the life they want. Her expression changed. You don't think family should support each other? I believe family should support each other with love. She looked away. And I knew. She wasn't looking for love. She was looking for access. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. I received a message from Daniel. He had discovered something through the legal review process. Something Vanessa had been hiding. Something that showed her intentions went beyond simple curiosity. She had already been discussing my estate with other people. She had already been making assumptions about what she would receive. And she had already started planning a life based on money that was not hers. When I read the information, I closed my eyes. I thought about Charles. I thought about Nathan. I thought about the young woman who first walked into my home and called me family, and I realized something. The trap was no longer about discovering whether Vanessa wanted my wealth. I already knew the answer. Now it was about allowing everyone else to see it too, especially Nathan. Because the hardest part of this entire situation was not proving Vanessa was wrong. It was helping my son accept the truth. The next stage of my plan would test everything: my family, my son's loyalty, and Vanessa's true character, because I was about to give her exactly what she wanted. Or at least, I was going to make her believe I had. There is a dangerous moment when someone believes they have already won. They stop being careful. They stop hiding. They begin revealing parts of themselves they worked hard to keep hidden. That was exactly what happened with Vanessa. For weeks, she had been trying to understand what was happening with my estate. She wanted answers. She wanted reassurance. She wanted control. But because I refused to give her what she wanted, she made a mistake. She became impatient. And impatience often reveals a person's true intentions. After my conversation with Daniel, I decided it was time for the next step. I invited Nathan and Vanessa to dinner. I wanted it to feel normal. I didn't want anger. I didn't want accusations. I wanted everyone sitting at the same table, because deep down, I still hoped my family could heal. When they arrived, Vanessa looked different. She seemed relaxed, almost confident. She walked into my home like someone who believed she had finally found the answer she was looking for. During dinner, we talked about ordinary things: work, weather, family memories, but eventually Vanessa brought up the topic I knew she would. "Eleanor, I hope you don't mind me asking something." I placed my glass down. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about what you said before, about your plans." I nodded. "Yes? I think it's important that Nathan understands what role he will have in the future." Nathan immediately looked uncomfortable. "Vanessa," but she continued, "I'm only saying this because we need to prepare." I looked at her. "Prepare for what?" She smiled. "For the responsibilities that will come." I leaned back. "Responsibilities?" "Yes. Managing everything." I studied her carefully. "You believe Nathan should manage my company?" "I believe he should be ready." I looked toward my son. "Nathan, is this something you discussed?" He hesitated. That hesitation hurt more than anything, because I knew he had heard these conversations before. Maybe he didn't agree with them. Maybe he avoided them. But he knew. "Nathan?" I asked. He sighed. "We've talked about the future." I nodded slowly. "I see." Vanessa reached across the table. "Eleanor, nobody is trying to take anything from you." I looked at her. "Then why does every conversation feel like you are trying to decide what happens to things that belong to me?" The room became quiet. Nathan looked down. Vanessa's expression hardened. "I think you have misunderstood me from the beginning." "Have I?" "Yes." She took a breath. "I married Nathan because I love him." "I believe you love Nathan." She looked surprised. "But I don't know if you respect me." That statement clearly affected her. "What does that mean?" "It means respect is not shown by asking what you will receive from someone." Her face changed. "You keep making me sound like a terrible person." I shook my head. "No, your actions are doing that." For the first time, Nathan raised his voice. "Enough." We both looked at him. "I can't keep watching this happen." His voice carried frustration and pain. "I love both of you, but this is tearing me apart." I looked at my son. "Nathan, I never wanted this." "I know, Mom." Then he turned toward Vanessa. "But I need you to be honest." She stared at him. "About what?" "About why you care so much about my mother's money." The question changed everything. Vanessa looked shocked, like she never expected Nathan to ask. "I cannot believe you're asking me that." "Because I need an answer." She stood up. "So now you're questioning me too?" Nathan looked hurt. "I'm asking for the truth." Vanessa grabbed her purse. "You both have already judged me." She walked away from the table, but before she left, she said something that stayed with me. "Maybe you'll realize one day that I was the only person thinking about this family's future." Then she left. After that night, Nathan became distant, not because he stopped loving me, but because he was facing a reality he had avoided. A few days later, he came to my home alone. He looked exhausted. He sat across from me and said, "Mom, I need to tell you something." I knew from his voice that it was serious. "What happened?" He looked down. Vanessa has been talking to people about your inheritance. I remained quiet. What kind of people? Friends? Advisors? People she knows. I felt my heart sink. What did she tell them? Nathan swallowed. She told them she believed you would eventually leave everything to us. I closed my eyes. Not because I was surprised, but because I was disappointed. Nathan continued. She also said once she had access to more money, she wanted to make changes. What changes? She wanted to sell some properties. Invest differently. Move away from some of the things you built. I looked at my son. And what did you say? He looked ashamed. I told her I didn't think it was right. That answer gave me some comfort, because beneath all the confusion, my son was still there. I'm sorry, Mom. I reached for his hand. You don't need to apologize for someone else's choices, but I should have seen it. No one wants to believe the person they love could hurt someone. Nathan became emotional. I feel like I failed you. I shook my head. No, you are learning something painful. What? That love does not mean ignoring the truth. That conversation was the turning point, because for the first time, Nathan was no longer defending Vanessa blindly. He was seeing what I had seen. But Vanessa was not finished. She still believed she could change the situation. She still believed she could convince everyone she was right. And she had no idea that the final part of my plan was already in motion. The moment had come. I was ready to reveal the truth. Not through anger, not through revenge, but through evidence. Because when everything was finally exposed, there would be no more excuses, no more explanations, no more pretending. Only the truth. The day I decided to reveal the truth, I did not wake up feeling victorious. That is something people misunderstand about betrayal. They imagine that when you finally prove someone wrong, you feel happiness, you feel satisfaction, you feel like you have defeated an enemy. But that was never how I felt. Vanessa was not a stranger. She was the woman my son chose to marry. She was someone I once hugged, trusted, and welcomed into my home. The truth did not make me happy. It made me sad, because the person I wanted to be wrong about was the person who had proven me right. For weeks, I had watched Vanessa believe she was closer than ever to getting what she wanted. She thought she understood my plans. She thought she knew what I had changed. She thought she knew what she would eventually receive. But she had made one mistake. She underestimated me. She forgot that, before I became a mother, I was a businesswoman. For more than 40 years, I had negotiated with people who tried to hide their intentions. I had learned how to recognize pressure, how to recognize manipulation, how to recognize when someone was saying one thing while planning another. Vanessa thought my kindness meant weakness. She was wrong. My kindness was a choice. But protecting myself was also a choice. The meeting was arranged at my attorney Daniel Parker's office. I invited Nathan and Vanessa. When they arrived, Nathan looked nervous. Vanessa looked confident. She walked into the room wearing an expensive designer outfit and carrying herself like someone attending a business meeting. That alone told me something. She did not come expecting a family conversation. She came expecting a negotiation. Daniel greeted everyone and asked us to sit down. I looked around the room. For years, I had imagined my family sitting together discussing memories, not legal documents, not inheritance, not money. But sometimes life takes you to places you never expected to go. Daniel opened a folder. Eleanor has asked me to explain the updates she made to her estate plan. Vanessa immediately leaned forward. Nathan noticed. I noticed. Daniel continued. First, I want everyone to understand that Eleanor's decisions are completely legal and reflect her personal wishes. Vanessa smiled politely. Of course. But her eyes were focused on the documents. Daniel looked at Nathan. You remain Eleanor's primary family beneficiary. Nathan looked surprised. Mom, I smiled slightly. I told you, you are my son. His expression softened. Then Daniel continued. However, Eleanor has created several conditions regarding the management of certain assets. Vanessa's smile disappeared. What kind of conditions? Daniel looked at her. Conditions designed to protect the legacy Eleanor and Charles built. Vanessa sat back. What does that mean? It means the company cannot simply be sold or changed without following the structure Eleanor created. I watched Vanessa carefully. She was trying to remain calm. But Nathan is her son. Yes, Daniel replied. And shouldn't he have control? Daniel answered calmly. Control comes with responsibility. The room became quiet. Then Daniel handed over another document. This is the part that concerns the family foundation. Vanessa looked confused. Foundation? Yes. Daniel explained that I had created a larger charitable foundation using a portion of my wealth. The foundation would support families, education programs, and young entrepreneurs. It was something Charles and I had discussed years earlier, a way for our success to continue helping others. Vanessa stared at the papers. So less money is going directly to Nathan? I looked at her. That question revealed everything. Not how wonderful, not that will help many people, not Charles would be proud. Her first concern was the amount. Daniel noticed too, he continued. Nathan will inherit significant assets, but Eleanor wanted to ensure that her wealth continues serving a purpose. Vanessa became quiet. Then she asked, "Why would you do this?" I looked at her. Because it is my decision. But after everything this family has built? I answered, exactly. After everything this family has built, I want it protected. She looked frustrated. You don't trust me. I stayed silent for a moment. Then I said, I trusted you. Those words affected her more than anger would have. I welcomed you, I continued. I treated you like a daughter. I gave you my time, my memories, and my love, but you started looking at my life as something you could claim. Vanessa shook her head. That's not true. Daniel placed another file on the table. This time, Nathan opened it. Inside were records of conversations and messages, not private conversations obtained illegally, just information that had been shared with people Vanessa had spoken to. Nathan read quietly. His face changed. What is this? Vanessa looked uncomfortable. Nathan, no. Answer me. He looked through the documents. You told people you were going to make changes to Mom's company? She became defensive. I was discussing possibilities. You told people you were waiting for your inheritance? She looked away. That's not what I meant. Nathan's voice became emotional. Then what did you mean? For the first time, Vanessa had no immediate answer. The room was silent. I watched my son experience something I never wanted him to experience. The pain of realizing someone you love may not be who you believed. Finally, Vanessa turned toward me. You planned this. I nodded. Yes. Her eyes widened. You set me up. No. I looked at her calmly. I created a situation where your choices could speak for themselves. She stood up. I cannot believe you would do this to me. I replied softly. I cannot believe you gave me a reason to. That sentence stayed in the room. Because it was the truth. The trap was never about money. The money only revealed what was already there. Vanessa had spent months trying to prove she deserved my wealth, but she never stopped to prove she deserved my trust. After the meeting, Nathan asked me to stay behind. When Vanessa left, he sat quietly. Mom. Yes? I'm sorry. I looked at him. For what? For not seeing it sooner. I reached across the table. Nathan. People sometimes have to discover things in their own time. He looked heartbroken. I don't know what happens now. I understood. Because this was not just about a marriage. It was about rebuilding trust. It was about accepting that the family we imagined was different from the family we actually had. But even after everything, I knew one thing. I did not want revenge. I wanted peace. And the next decision I made would determine whether this family stayed broken forever or whether there was still a chance to heal. After the meeting with Daniel, I expected to feel relief. I expected the weight I had carried for months to finally disappear. But instead, I felt something I did not expect. I felt tired. Not physically tired, emotionally tired. Because when someone hurts you, especially someone you consider family, The pain does not disappear simply because the truth comes out. The truth can set you free, but it does not erase the memories. I returned home that evening and walked through the rooms that held so many years of my life. The living room where Charles and I celebrated our anniversary. The kitchen where Nathan used to sit on the counter while I prepared breakfast. The hallway where Vanessa once walked in smiling, telling me she was grateful to become part of our family. I remembered that woman, the woman I thought she was, and I wondered when things changed. Or maybe the harder question was whether they had ever been different. A few days passed after the meeting. Nathan called me every day. Sometimes we talked for hours, sometimes we sat in silence. But slowly we began repairing what had been damaged. One evening, Nathan came to my house alone. He looked different, not physically, emotionally. There was a sadness in his eyes that I had never seen before. He sat across from me and said, "Mom, I need to tell you something." I nodded. "I'm listening." I spoke to Vanessa. I remained quiet. "How did it go?" He looked down. "She's angry." I expected that, but she also admitted some things. I looked at him. "What things?" Nathan took a deep breath. "She said she felt insecure." I listened carefully. "She said she spent years comparing herself to other people. She believed money was the only thing that gave people respect." I felt a little sadness hearing that, because insecurity can explain behavior, but it cannot excuse hurting people. Nathan continued. "She said when she married me, she wanted the kind of life she saw wealthy families having." I nodded slowly. "And did she understand what she did?" He looked uncertain. "I think she is starting to." Starting was the important word, because true change does not happen because someone gets caught. It happens when someone accepts responsibility. For weeks, Nathan and Vanessa lived separately. They needed space. They needed time to understand what happened. During that time, I focused on myself. For the first time in years, I stopped worrying about everyone else's emotions. I traveled. I spent time with friends. I worked with my foundation. I remembered who I was outside of being a mother, a wife, a business owner. I remembered Eleanor. Then one afternoon, Vanessa came to my home. Alone. No expensive gifts. No carefully prepared speech. Just Vanessa. She stood at my door looking nervous. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. Yes. We sat in the same living room where our biggest arguments had happened. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she finally said, "I owe you an apology." I listened. I was wrong. Those words surprised me, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I had waited a long time to hear them, she continued. I told myself I was protecting my future. I told myself I was helping Nathan. But the truth is, I became obsessed with what you had. She looked down. I stopped seeing you as a person. That sentence was important, because it was the first time she acknowledged the real problem, not the money, the lack of respect. "I hurt you," she said. "Yes," I replied. She nodded. "I know." The room became quiet. Then she said something I never expected. "I don't expect you to trust me again immediately." That showed me something had changed. Because the old Vanessa would have demanded forgiveness, the new Vanessa was accepting that forgiveness had to be earned. "I appreciate your apology," I said. She looked at me. "But trust takes time." "I understand." I studied her face. For the first time in a long time, I did not see ambition. I saw regret, but I also knew something important. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. Forgiveness does not mean pretending nothing happened. It means releasing the anger while still protecting yourself. Months later, Nathan and Vanessa made a decision about their marriage. They chose counseling. They chose honesty. They chose to rebuild slowly. I supported Nathan because he was my son, but I also made something clear. Love requires respect. A marriage cannot survive when one person sees another person as a tool for a better lifestyle. Over time, Vanessa changed. Not overnight, not magically, but gradually, she began volunteering with my foundation. She started learning about the families we helped. She met people who had almost nothing but still showed kindness and generosity. And I think that changed her, because she finally saw something Charles had understood years ago. A person's wealth is not measured by what they own. It is measured by what they give. Years later, when I look back on everything that happened, I no longer see Vanessa as the woman who tried to take my fortune. I see her as someone who lost her way, someone who allowed fear and insecurity to control her decisions. But I also see myself differently. I learned that being generous does not mean allowing people to cross your boundaries. I learned that protecting yourself is not the same as being cruel. And I learned that sometimes the greatest test of love is discovering who stays when there is nothing to gain. My husband Charles used to say, "The strongest families are not the ones that never face storms. They are the ones that learn how to rebuild after them." And that is exactly what we did. We rebuilt. Not by pretending the betrayal never happened, but by facing it, by accepting the truth, and by choosing what kind of people we wanted to become afterward. Today, my company continues. My foundation continues helping others. Nathan and I are closer than ever. And Vanessa, she is still part of my family. But now she understands something she should have known from the beginning. My love was never something she needed to earn through money. It was something I gave freely. All she ever needed to do was value it, because in the end, the greatest thing I had to offer was never my wealth. It was my heart, and that was the one thing no amount of money could ever replace.